once again. This is my Ninja Gaiden 3 Ultimate Ninja difficulty walkthrough. This is the final part of Day 7, and this is a bit of a gauntlet fight before the boss of the level, the final boss of the level. The gauntlet involves the bayonet guys. Bayonet guys? Why'd I say that? What the fuck is that called? Beret guys, sorry. Beret dudes. Beret dudes, you know, traffic control, coordinators, and just the standard crappy ninja Metal Gear Solid crony, genome soldiers. Once you've had your fill of these, some mages are going to turn up, and you're going to have to be careful because it's quite a big fight. So, you know, do your best. I'm sure you can get through it, and hopefully with this video I can give you a bit of incentive. But along this, you know, this last level worth of videos, I've been going on some interesting religious tangents, and it's quite a polarizing topic, but I'm trying to do it in a silly way, whereas you know, I'm not trying to offend people. I'm trying to put out things, and I'm putting ideas out there and observations out there in a palatable form where it's more jest than anything, so that the most sensitive of my viewers who are religious don't get offended. And if you do get offended, you know, just don't listen. I mean, that seems to be the universal answer for most religious folks who come up against an ideal that they don't want to face. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you think there's nothing wrong with that, I personally think there's everything wrong with that, but that's just a difference of belief. And this is a conversation on beliefs. It's one of the most innately personal things we have. You know, it's intrinsic to the individual. My beliefs are in silly things like Denzel Washington. Other people's beliefs are in gods and stuff. But I was talking about original sin in the previous video. And original sin is one of those things where there is no quantifiable, visual... Original sin is a construct, it's an idea, it's an ideal in some ways. It is literally... It's whatever you want it to be, it has the value that you give it. It's like money, it's like the economy, it's like love. You know, aside from endorphins tripping in your brain, there is no physical manifestation of love. You know, you don't grow a horn and that horn doesn't secrete some kind of gel which you can then bottle and sell. Love 2.0. You know, it just is something. It's a state of mind, and I suppose so is original sin. As however else will we learn to self-flagellate and, you know, take part in such acts as contrition and repentance, you know, to get that nasty sin out of us. Which I think is a very selfish thing, man. I do, because essentially original sin is a punishment. You know, it exists because we did wrong. But there's no learning from it, you know, there's no forgiveness there. How can the mantra preach forgiveness, like dogmatic forgiveness, when the very inception of the idea comes from the lack of forgiveness? You know, for punishment of a single mistake, you know, and a mistake committed by a woman, no less, you know. And women do not fare well in the Bible, guys. You know, when they're not being gang raped, they're being condescended, which, you know, half of that sentence could still apply today, which just goes to show how far we really haven't come when it comes to things like equality, even though the world is in a much better state than it was back then, especially. But sin is such a strange thing, you know, especially when you look at the commandments, which, for all we know, the commandments could be mistranslations. So we're believing in a bunch of divine rulings that could have been paraphrased completely wrong. You know, instead of saying going to church on Sunday, it could say go to KFC. And none of us are going to KFC, thus when the rapture does come, or when we die and we get to St. Peter's gates, and he's like, well, you didn't go to KFC, we were all gathered in KFC and you were in these crazy buildings with this weird dead guy on the wall, and then we're all in trouble. But the lack of forgiveness breeds a mentality of forgiveness, to which you're then supposed to spend your entire life repenting for. You know, it's this self-fulfilling cycle, it's this cyclical notion of you are always sorry. You know, you're always the one who is wrong. You're always guilty of something, and thus, you know, you should go to confession, I guess, because that's what it leads to. You know, we're all so filled with sin. We can't just consolidate our sin into one big sinful alone. We have to go to, you know, a man of the faith, an intermediary between God, and basically say, I coveted my neighbour, you know, last week, and I coveted her a little bit more on my kitchen counter, if you know what I mean. Like, it's so profound. It really is. And especially when you consider that the only literature we have that, you know, really covers original sin tells us that it comes from semen. Which is just baffling. How can such a crazy idea that governs a lot of the way that people live be as easily contracted as through seminal fluid? Like, it's like inheriting debt by banging. It's just crazy. It really is. And this is not a lie, this, guys. Original sin was believed, the first documentation of it, to be passed on via semen. So it was men. Men were essentially the carriers of original sin. I am a sin breeder, effectively. You know, I've given my girlfriend sin, which is a fucking horrible thing to think about. Not quite as horrible as the clap, but I don't have that, thank God. But that's the end of day 7, and I'm probably going to put a cap on these discussions, because I've just done them in a row, and for all I know, there might be a bunch of people saying, like, you know, we don't want to listen to this, we want to listen to something different, which would not stop me doing it. It's just a case of I'll see how well these run, see if people can get behind this and have some interesting tangents, or if it just turns into a, you know, tit-for-tat nonsense show. We'll soon see. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope the video helped. I hope the commentary at least entertained, even if you hated everything I said and think I'm just a dirty heathen who's probably going to burn in eternal damnation. But at least that's where all the good music is.